Welcome to today's Explainer. We're standing right on the edge of a massive shift in how we understand the world. AI is literally transforming how we consume, verify, and most importantly, how we create information in modern media. So today, we're going to unpack exactly what that means for you, your career, and the very stories that shape our reality.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 5 key stops. First, the new information gateway. Then, decoding true AI literacy, followed by data-driven storytelling, automating the narrative, and finally wrapping up with the human-machine frontier.
So, starting right off with Section 1, the new information gateway. Look at this prediction from the Reuters Institute. They're saying that by 2026, AI systems, chatbots, large language models, will actually become our primary gateway to news and information. That is a massive global shift. People are going to increasingly bypass traditional news websites altogether. Instead of scrolling a homepage, you'll just ask an AI for the latest updates. The whole format of news is shifting to cater to this entirely new behavior.
And naturally, a shift this big is causing a massive ripple effect in the job market. According to recent World Bank data, we've seen a staggering 16% growth in AI job postings in upper-middle-income countries just since 2021. The crazy thing is, the demand for AI skills, it's no longer just a niche requirement for software engineers. It is rapidly spreading like wildfire across content creation, marketing, research, the whole shebang.
Because of this rapid spread, the World Bank categorizes the digital skills you actually need to survive this shift into 3 distinct levels. First, you have your basic skills. These are absolutely essential just to participate in the modern workforce and use consumer-facing tools like ChatGPT. Then, you step up to intermediate skills. This is what's required for most professional jobs today, basically integrating AI directly into your daily business workflows. And finally, advanced skills, which is where you're actually developing and customizing the algorithms behind the scenes.
Which brings us to Section 2, decoding true AI literacy, moving way beyond just typing basic prompts.
You see, true AI literacy requires a really balanced blend of skills. Take a look at this framework from OMI Box, which was designed specifically for modern media pros. Notice how it's definitely not just about coding? Obviously, you need technical and practical skills to actually use the tools, but look at those bottom 3 components: ethical, critical thinking, and collaboration. On a day-to-day practical level, this means you really need to understand data protection, you have to question outputs to catch algorithmic biases, and you need to know how to effectively communicate with machine learning experts. It's a much more holistic, pragmatic approach to navigating these tools.
And tucked right inside that broader AI literacy is data literacy, acting as a core foundational pillar. Think about it. If AI systems are fed by data, you absolutely have to be able to evaluate that data's quality, visualize it effectively, and identify the hidden prejudices or biases baked into the datasets. Honestly, if you can't question the underlying data, you really can't reliably evaluate the AI tools you're using to generate your information in the first place.
Now let's jump to Section 3, data-driven storytelling and how we communicate all this complexity. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how a massive, intimidating historical data set can be transformed into a simple, engaging narrative. This is a famous visual data story from Hans Rosling and Gapminder. It starts by plotting global birth rates, babies for women, way back in the 1800s. The visual immediately draws your eye to that overarching trend, right alongside text that hints at a future drop.
As the narrative moves forward, the combination of the text and the highlighted visual timeline builds this really compelling arc. Look here. It shows that for well over a century, those birth rates held remarkably steady. They hovered at about 5 babies per woman all the way up to the year 1965. The text and that flat yellow line work together perfectly to anchor the historical context for us.
And this brilliantly illustrates the turning point of the story. By shifting the timeline forward, the visual hits you with a steep, totally unprecedented dive. The text plainly states that, over the last 50 years, the rate dropped like never before. This just proves how effective visual stories are in making incredibly complex, multi-decade trends instantly accessible to anyone, completely regardless of their technical background. The story then concludes by bringing us right up to the present day, revealing the rate has basically halved, down to 2.5 babies per woman. This human-created data story is an incredibly powerful way to convey insights. But crafting something like this requires meticulous data analysis, graphic design chops, and a real intuition for narrative pacing. It's super labor-intensive, and that sets up a massive technical question. Can we actually automate this deeply human storytelling process?
Well, that brings us to Section 4,
automating the narrative and how AI is stepping into storytelling.
Listen to this spot-on insight from Martin Stabe at the Financial Times. He says, AI will allow reporters to find scoops through analyzing vast data sets from external sources, instead of relying only on their own archives. AI is quite literally redefining modern journalism as we know it. We're moving from a world where humans manually sift through endless spreadsheets to one where AI instantly extracts the hidden narratives, patterns, and scoops from massively complicated data sets.
So the crucial point is figuring out how the technology actually pulls off this automated reporting. Researchers have developed systems like the Data Narrative Multi-Agent Framework. And it doesn't just use one AI model. It actually pairs up two large language model agents that work together to mimic a human newsroom's writing and editing process. First, you have a generator agent. It reflects on the data, plans the outline, and writes out the narration. Then an evaluator agent steps in, playing the role of a tough critic, verifying facts against the data, and checking if the narrative actually aligns. They then enter this revision loop, continually refining the text and the chart designs until the whole story is perfectly coherent and accurate. It's basically a complete automated newsroom in a box.
Finally, let's zoom back out for Section 5, the human-machine frontier.
So what does this incredible level of automation actually mean for the future of our jobs and our skills? The Future of Jobs report offers a pretty stark comparison. On one hand, you have technical skills, like mastering a specific coding language or piece of software. Now, these are highly vulnerable to rapid technological obsolescence. On the other hand, you have transversal soft skills. They're durable, they're highly transferable, and they form the real foundation across all roles. The bottom line, if you only have technical expertise without those strong foundational soft skills, you're probably going to struggle to adapt as AI takes over the heavy lifting.
So what exactly are these human-centric skills that are going to serve as your ultimate defense against job displacement? The report highlights things like analytical and critical thinking, creative thinking, empathy and active listening, and just having a genuine curiosity for lifelong learning. Because here's the secret. AI doesn't replace these traits, it amplifies them. The professionals who can combine these deeply human soft skills with the technical horsepower of AI, they're the ones for sure who will lead the next era of media and business.
Now let's move to this next slide and see how this builds into an urgent warning from the World Bank, the risk of intellectual laziness. If we just blindly rely on AI to generate all our stories, our outlines, and our analysis, we risk severely dulling our own cognitive engagement. We essentially lose our independent problem-solving muscles. Digital literacy isn't just knowing how to use a tool, it's about maintaining that mental friction required to actively and critically evaluate whatever the tool spits out.
Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative thought. As AI systems completely master the data, automate our narratives, and become our primary information gateways, are you mastering the critical thinking required to actually question them? Upgrading your AI literacy and doubling down on those uniquely human soft skills, it's no longer just optional, it is absolutely essential. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.